It is important to be guided on this spiritual path. Why? Because we tend to make things complicated. We expect it to be very complicated. Awakening. We read so many books, we hear about so many experiences from saints or masters that we think that it's going to be wow, but that's not it. That's not because it's not an experience. It's not something that the mind can apprehend. It's not an object whatsoever. We were talking about it yesterday with Gerald. A while ago I had an epiphany. Because when you ask Gerald, do you have any thoughts? He says, no, I don't have any thoughts. But how can that be? I mean, he's talking, he's moving, so obviously he's having thoughts. But the answer just came, it was very obvious. Consciousness is prior to thoughts. Thoughts are objects. A thought is an object and it appears within consciousness. So if you are identified, if you are consciousness in itself, pure in itself, then you're not the thoughts. Thoughts are just appearing. Thoughts are just things appearing. What we're going to do today, what we're already doing really, is called Satsang. Sat means, Sangha, means gathering, to gather around. And Sat means truth, what's real, what's true. So what's real, what's true for yogis is what never moves, was permanent, was always there. So the invitation today is, rather than living on the impermanent plane, which creates some sort of suffering, some sort of unsatisfaction, permanent unsatisfaction, we tend not to notice it because we do have pleasures in life. We do have moments of happiness, but it's never lasting. It's not permanent. It's not stable. There's nothing stable here. So we're never satisfied, fully satisfied. There's always some sort of unsatisfaction. So to find satisfaction, we need to find, or it needs to be revealing itself. Paradox is we're not the one doing anything. We're not the one finding. It's revealing itself. But maybe when we take off the veils, Gerald uses that saying too, using the veils of Maya. And thinking about it earlier, using the veils of Maya, I was thinking, might be just using the veils, wishing for something that's not what already is. And satisfaction, if you look at it closely, is wishing for something that's different from what is right now, something else than what is. We want something that is going to be better later or better somewhere else. We want awakening with all flashes and lights and flashes. It's really not like that. It's really not. And Gerald told me so many times, and I'm not exaggerating here. Gerald told me it's so simple. It's simple. It is so simple, and it is true. That's the reason why we miss it really, because the mind wants something very complicated, but wholeness is very simple. And all the limitations we put on ourselves, limitations are just added on. Sometimes I just say that awakening is just being. There's nothing added on. It's just being. Enlightenment is just being. And that's the point. You can't add anything. That's really it.
Donc il n'y a même pas la place pour un personnage qui fait
So there's no room for a character. Even in the end, a character that is doing the seeking, the spiritual seeking, is dropping. There's no room for it. There's no room for someone who wish for enlightenment. The very last thing that I let go of is wishing for enlightenment. I am part of a lineage, but even that I actually let go of. But I've been following sages from India, so there is a lineage from masters to disciples. And even this traditional aspect of Indian sages, it just dropped, and there's no more identification to any kind of lineage. If you look closely, enlightened people do not pretend, they do not advocate the wisdom of their country, for instance, or how can I say? It is so what we are that there's nothing to add, no tag, no word, or there's no need to put God in a bottle, really. There's no need to add anything. No need to add definitions. So it is coming or going from a world with definitions to a world where there is, well, there's no world anymore, and there's no need for definitions anymore. So that's the reason why it's quite hard to talk about it. And you can't learn it. Awakening is not something you learn, and there's nothing objective to learn, but awakening is the absolute subject, and it's you. It is what is the most you. That is what is you. So this is where it's starting to get interesting. So if I ask what you are, at first you might say my name. You'll tell me about your identity. My name is blah blah. I'm X years old. But if you look at it, you'll see that that can move, actually, that can change, because your name can change. That's not really you. For instance, you can say, I am Alexandre, but there is I am before. So there's always this I am, which is the common denominator to everyone. So if there was one practice, that would come back to the very core of what we are. If there was only one practice, that would be the one. There are lots of different ways to investigate. The goal is to disconnect the mind and try and stop having tags and try and get into, enter. Well, actually, to enter doesn't mean anything really, but going into the very heart of what we are. That's the famous question from sages. What am I? If I take away everything, what am I? What's left? So if you take all the objects, because you can define objects, so what's left? There's going to be perceptions, all right? So imagine you don't have any memory, no past, no future, nothing. So there's perceptions, and we were talking about perceptions a little bit earlier on, and people here are a bit sensitive to Wi-Fi, so there's definitely perceptions and sensations. So when you start to be sensitive to Wi-Fi or subtle, so that's a good thing. That means that you see things that you can't perceive with your eyes. So you start to perceive that there's energy, and quantum physics tell us that everything is vibration, so it's a good thing to see that. So we do live in a vibrating world, but it doesn't answer the question, because it is still a perception. So what is perceiving this vibration. Something is perceiving. What is it? Now we're getting serious now. What is it that perceives and sees? Or to put it in a simpler way, does what perceives have any kind of effort to do to see and perceive? Now, that makes things quite easier. So, right now you can see me. So, the very fact of seeing, does that very act of seeing has any kind of effort to do? No, right? It is seeing on its own. Is it you with your identity and your mind that are making some kind of effort to see? So, no, right? Life, which is going through you, sees on its own. Life, which perceives sensations, sees on its own. All right? Now, the fact of being conscious of being, are you making it, are you doing it, or is it spontaneous? No, it's spontaneous, right? So awakening is just letting that express itself on its own, and without adding any filters, just letting what is be. Consciousness doesn't need a personal story to be. A part of you might wish to resist, but you're already on the path, so you do know that it's the process, and you do know that the little me will have to drop. It is hard sometimes, but you know it will have to drop. There can be a resistance to that, yet there's no other way than letting yourself fall into this nudity, or letting yourself be this nudity of being. Consciousness is absolutely deprived of everything. There's no more bearings. At first, after the shift, I don't know how you felt it, Gerald, but at some point when it's revealing itself with such intensity, and you see that world of space and time from a point where there's no time and no space, so it's a bit weird. And sometimes those are just experiences. It's not awakening, but it's still happening to me that I'm walking in the street and I see the whole universe collapsing and then reappearing, and it is a bit weird. I can see this world emerging, this universe emerging as a bubble into now. It's not as tangible as it used to be, and there's not the belief that what I'm perceiving here, it is absolute truth, and what I'm perceiving is not eternal. It's an emanation from consciousness, and it's beautiful, and I'm not rejecting it, and I'm not saying it's not worth anything, but consciousness actually needs it to experiment itself, and it's joyous to do so. That's the reason why Gégé, I mean Gerald, well, Gerald's nickname is Gégé. He often says that it's a game. It's really a game. Consciousness plays the game of knowing, to remember what it is, as you often say. So this incredible world, this incredible life that seems to be taking all the space, and sometimes you can actually feel like it's suffering, it's creating suffering, and I can see that, I can understand that. But in the end, it's only consciousness that is trying to and playing the game to find itself. And I know it might sound crazy, but there's nothing else. With that awakening, you look for everywhere all sorts of experiences. At first, people tend to look for human experiences, like journeys or friends, or And this is the ego working there. We don't realize it, but it's actually the ego there. And at some point, I just got fed up, realizing that nothing was tangible. So I was asking myself, and what is already here? Where can I rest myself? What never moves? And at some point, it just stops. Well, the seeking stops when the seeker drops. We wrote a book, Gerald and I, and I couldn't write it again now because I don't have any questions anymore. The questioner is still this movement of seeking because you feel like you're unsatisfied or you're lacking something, but at some point you realize the problem, the issue was actually that seeking for something that might be very far away, and you seek for something, you look for something outside of what is. But in the end, all there is what is. So trying to look for something outside of what you are, which is what is, then it's impossible. There's nothing outside of what you are. It is an illusion, indeed.
Donc, voilà, en gros c'est ça. Je voulais parler un peu de notre histoire, mais bon, je sais pas trop si ça vous intéresse ou pas.
So, I might want to talk about our story, but I don't know if it's interesting or anything. So maybe you can try, Gerald. What can I say? Well, then in this story, then there's Alexandre too. He's the one who brought you in. So, I used to work and I used to live in Vincennes back then when we met, and I don't know what to say, we just met. Well, to put it simply, a sadhana, as we call it in India, and Gerald, halfway through my sadhana, arrived into my life to help me, because I was going through so many experiences and it was quite hard to apprehend. So it was nice to have someone to talk to about it. And Gerald always kept bringing me back to simplicity. So he kept on saying, no. Well, no, actually, he didn't say no. He just let me do my experiences. Because the paradox is, you need to do all those experiences to realize that this is not into the experience that you find what you're looking for. Because at some point, you just get fed up. It's tiring. Where will I be able to rest? Where can I find that place that never moves? What can I do? So we keep on rejecting the simplest thing, which is now. We keep living outside of now, thinking that it's going to be better later. But if you look at it, right here, right now, everything is complete and whole. And truly, from the truth perspective, there's nothing that you need to do to be what you are. You fully are already. It's already done. The only thing that there is to do is to take away the belief that you have to do something. That's really it. It's not something mental, like from the mind. It's just an acceptance. What is as it is. And into that, look closely. You don't need your personal story. You don't need your emotional baggage. Just taste what is. Just look what is. See what is. And that's it. And there is joy. There is a joy in not being someone with a personal story. And just being no identifications anymore. We can actually go into the Q&A. Yeah, let's do that.
En fait, par rapport à ce que je vous dis, il y a peut-être une résistance qui vient.
You might find some sort of resistance to what I'm saying right now. The ego is actually existing through resistance. So you might actually just try and feel that feeling of resistance. And you might find, a little belief saying, yeah, awakening will be there, but later. Or sometimes once I heard someone saying, if I awaken, then I will let people on the backside, on the side, I will just abandon them, which is not true. So just look at whatever is preventing you from living this simplicity, or maybe what is it that keeps coming back into the daily life? Because the only thing that makes you think that you're not enlightened is the fact that you refer to the past. You might think, well, I can't be enlightened because I've been doing that and I keep doing that. And it's a story that you keep repeating, and it makes you believe that it's not there. I used to think I can't be awakened because I still have desires. Nah. Here and now, there's no desire. Well, you might want to get a cup of tea or anything, but just when you stay right here, right now. And Gerald keeps saying that it's right here, right now. It's in the immediacy of here and now.
J'ai toujours l'impression de parler tout le temps, mais bon. Comme je disais à Gérald, ma bouche parle, mais j'ai pas l'impression de parler.
I feel like I'm talking. I'm a very talkative guy. It feels like this is my mouth talking on itself. It talks but doesn't talk at the same time. But anyway. So I was trying to say that now is not a time. Try and apprehend that. Now doesn't register into temporality. At some point I realized that there is something here, ever present, whatever I'm doing. Eyes open, eyes closed, while I'm sleeping. Well, it's actually the consciousness is not sleeping, but whatever you're doing, whatever happens, now is always the same. Can you sense that? For instance, look at your gaze. Okay, when you turn around, you see that everything is moving in front of your eyes. But can you feel that something behind it or prior to that is not moving? And it's not something philosophical. It's that this thing that is not moving, at some point realize that it is actually embracing vision. If you look closely, what the mind is conceptualizing, whatever you see, every image is inside consciousness, and it's the same with time. Time for the mind it's a sort of a cross, a point, and then there's another one, and this line is time, but it's in the mind. When I was
Et tout ça, on le porte, on s'en rend pas compte, mais on porte le temps, en fait. C'est fatigant.
And you actually carry time with you. You don't realize that, but it's quite heavy. and we forget. We forget that this white paper doesn't move, and this white paper is now. And this white paper is actually including everything at the same time. So consciousness is actually including everything, absolutely everything at the same time. Whatever you see appears within the fact of being conscious. Is that clear? If you take away consciousness, what's left? There's nothing left. So that's the very, very base of a thing, the very center. There's no need to add any, thousands of concepts to it. Just see what resists to that. Maybe the quickest way to see what resists to that is to see what resists to that is the best way. And the resistance, funny thing is, where does resistance appear into? Where does it and it appears within consciousness.
C'est pas tout à fait oui, c'est la conscience aussi, parce que tout est conscience.
So it appears in resistance is consciousness. Well, yes and no, but yes, because everything is consciousness. So resistance is seen by consciousness into a space. Well, I do say space, but it's, so to speak, it's just a word. There's no space. So resistance is included into consciousness. So sometimes when I train people to meditate. So just stop with any methods. So first you start with breathing, which is good. Look at your thoughts, but at some point, up to a point, where you realize that everything appears into a conscious space, and if you look closely, to consciousness, whatever appears, does it put any resistance to anything, even resistance to resistance? No, because it's actually seen immediately. It's only ego. But if you let go of the little me that is always resisting and trying to hold on to everything, and just tell yourself, okay, everything is welcome. Just tell yourself that. It's a very good meditation, actually. It's welcoming everything. Everything is welcomed. No more resistance. So ego being made of resistance, then it drops. So if there's no more resistance, then there's no more duality, and then it's done. And there's no need to do years and years of practice. I've been struggling for 17 years, and it's probably to be able to get the message to people that you don't need to. Our time, nowadays, we don't need to do all of that. Feels like consciousness is ready. Kids are very conscious. Look at what's happening all around at the moment. It's absolutely incredible. All those alternative ways of teaching, all those new schools, all those therapies, even science, quantum physics, everything that is revealing at the moment. And at some point, that won't be that's not going to be called alternative anymore. That's going to be the norm. There's a clarity emerging more and more. And sometimes just a few words are enough. Yeah, sure. I do not need to hold on to my shell so that nothing comes in, and I'm protected and I'm secured, and like Wi-Fi. This is just a joke. I can feel the resistance to Wi-Fi, so. She doesn't seem really convinced. All right, the shell. Yeah, sure, there is Wi-Fi.
Si tu mets une carapace, ok, il n'y a rien qui rentre, mais il n'y a rien qui sort non plus. Donc,
So if you've put on a shell, then there's nothing coming in, but there's nothing coming out either.
L'amour va avoir du mal à passer,
So
la joie
if nothing comes out, then love and joy won't be able to get through. And I think that someone asked Gerald if he has any fears or something like, does he need to be protected? And Gerald says no. On a certain vibration level, vibratory level, maybe yes, but on the consciousness level, no. Because, like I said, protecting yourself means being in some sort of fear. But the body is a crystallized vibration. Being in fear means you're in sort of danger, so you have to protect yourself. And it is only a part of illusion. There is no danger, it doesn't exist. It's an illusion. What does it mean, danger? It has a value when you think about the body, sure, but you're not the body, and the body is included into consciousness. So, and the body is an incredible tool, like the mind and like the ego. Nothing is rejected. But fundamentally, you're not that, so there's no need to be fearful. When you cut your finger, can you see how the whole body is doing the whole thing on itself? So you're not telling your cells by yourself. You know, like, come on, little cells, do your job. It's just a very natural happening. So everything else all right? Yeah, sure. That's it.
Plus ça se révèle,
the more it reveals itself, this consciousness, there is a confidence emerging and confidence in life. Everything happens naturally, perfectly. Really. We often think that we need to fight to achieve something in life, to get some sort of accomplishment in life. But the more we reveal what we are, the more naturally life goes by, and the role of a life. That's funny, but we think that we will be able to accomplish ourselves in life, but actually we think that consciousness will accomplish itself in life, but it's actually life that helps consciousness accomplish itself. Life is a tool as well. This world is just here to reveal what you are. The goal is not to make something of your life on the human level. Look at countries, people in Vietnam, Vietnamese people. The other day I was hearing, Vietnamese people, poor Vietnamese people are very happy. So there's consciousness needs. Well, if you want to be wealthy, then no worries, you'll have it. But if you want to be wealthy or rich, just find what you are here. And Jesus said so. First, find the kingdom, and then the rest will come. And the kingdom is not from here, so you don't look. You don't look for it. Well,
d'ici parce que ce qu'on est c'est en dehors du temps et de l'espace fondamentalement. Donc c'est au-delà, mais ça inclut tout.
Here is what helps you reveal what you are, the kingdom outside of here. It's a bit paradoxical, but that's what it is.
Au début, au début quand même, ça fait un peu bizarre. Ce
paradox at first might seem strange, like feeling like there's time and space, but there's no such things. There's just consciousness, there's just being, and there's this appearance of a body moving into time and space, and like getting older too. And my grandmother, Granny, is 92. So once I asked her, she was sitting on a chair. All right. So relax yourself. Do you feel the body? No, that's all right. All right. Granny, tell me right here, right now, do you feel like you're 92 years old? No. Well, if you could look at her, she's running like a rabbit. She's gardening, she's running everywhere. It's extraordinary. She's very conscious. It's really that. That's the thing. I don't know if it's the same for you, but every time I'm asked how old I am, every time I have to calculate in my mind, oh yeah, right, I am this age. So it proves that it's wrong. It's not natural. But I'm going to ask you now, are you? How much time did it take for you to? I am is instantaneous. But I am my name. There's this tiny time in between I am and the name. Or same with the place you live in. The very spontaneous thing that there is just I am, being. That's the reason why this question of who am I is important, but it comes from so an, but it's not, doesn't mean who am I, but me, what. So that means that this me, what, points to somewhere where there's not even an I. So who am I would mean that there would be some sort of I that would be there to be. But to me it's a very bad translation. Me what? Now that's pointing to the truth. So is a very good exercise. Amso is also a very good exercise.
Et en fait, toute la blague, c'est que justement le jeu.
The joke is that this I.
Donc en fait, dans la vie, on dit souvent. Il y a toutes sortes d'expressions, genre ça me met hors de moi, toutes sortes d'expressions qui.
There's lots of expressions showing you that there's two eyes, like I'm out of my mind, I'm fed up with myself. So the question, me what? So who is perceiving this me? It's very paradoxical. It's a paradox. But after enlightenment, after the shift, so I'm talking right now, so there's an appearance of a personal I. Appears that there is a person, but without making any effort. I'm right here, right now. I'm in a space where you can't say anything. You can't even say there is. I'm trying to say there's, but even that there's, it's too much. This is quite disturbing, because there's no words. Of course, there must be words, but no.
Expérience qui se manifeste, et je mets des guillemets parce que ça veut rien dire, encore une fois. Il y a pas de mots, on peut pas expliquer.
There is no word. You can't explain an I which isn't personal. There's always been an I, and it's including everything, without being in relationship with me and something else. So you can't. It's nameless. It's wordless. So there is this force of being. This force of being, but being nothing. But even that nothing is too much. That's it. That's true. That's right. You were talking about satsang, like sat being the truth, but this word in Sanskrit, you can hear it on different levels. Satya means truth, but it's not a knowledge that you've learned. It's something that you've experimented, that you experience. So all the words can be replaced by experience, right here, right now. That's why sages say, I can bring you to the water, but I can't drink for you. And same with someone who you try to explain what an orange tastes like. As long as the person hasn't tasted it. So it's impossible for someone who's experiencing the truth to explain it. It's very funny in the end. Which is some sort of Rubik's Cube. You might hit your head against the wall first. There's no need to find some sort of meaning. Practice is kind of useless, but doesn't matter in the end. It's all those practices. They enable you to see through all the cogs and mechanisms up to the moment you realize there's no cogs in the end. So those practices, they can help you realize that there's no need to go through practices. And in a way, the flower just opens up when it's ready to open up. I know the ego doesn't like to hear that, but if you hear, that means that the flower is actually on the verge of, on the edge of opening up. If the question comes up, that means that the answer is already here. It is a benediction, that this question of me, what, or who am I, or it can even be very suffering, a big suffering, but suffering is actually what will help you go beyond suffering.
Au fait d'expliquer, parce que juste après cette réalisation, pendant bien 15 jours, 3 semaines, on va dire le dernier truc, la dernière accroche.
The way you're trying to explain this understanding, for about 3 weeks after the shift, I was trying to find a way to explain, like, how am I going to explain that? You can't explain it. No, that's not it. The only thing you can do is bring people to taste this experience, not this experience, but like there is the neti-neti practice, or try and repeat, I am not, I am not, I am not, and you'll see that something will show up. There's a force showing up. So you are, and it's known. So, what or which or who knows that you know that you are? So you can't put any word on it. It's moving. What you're telling me is really touching. You are, and it's known. From what I've felt, and I've always known. There's also that feeling. I've always known, and it's quite hard sometimes to put words on it, but it's always been there. It's a bit stupid in the end, It's like, oh, come on. And beyond beyond the experience of this world and this body. And
Ce que tu as dit tout à l'heure, et tu dis, putain, mais en fait, ça
that
a toujours été.
has always been, that always was, and I've always known that, and it's really, really strong.
Ouais. En fait, je me suis
Well,
pas
I
dit
didn't
ça
tell
tout de
myself
suite,
it's
parce qu'au
not
début,
possible
j'ai pas
because I
compris,
didn't
ce
realize
qui
what
se
was
passait.
happening.
Parce qu'au début, je pense.
At first, I didn't get
En
it.
fait, j'ai pas compris.
I just
J'ai juste vu que j'étais très
noticed that I
conscient
was
tout le
very
temps,
conscious all the
tout le
time,
temps fort.
without any effort. And
Je répétais
I
à
was
ma
telling my
compagne,
partner, I don't know what's happening to me, but I'm very, very, very conscious all the time. Now
Maintenant,
was
c'était
so
tellement
intense,
intense au moment
during
du
the shift,
basculement, et ça a duré des jours,
and
des jours,
it
que
lasted
je
for a few days. I was
j'avais
actually
du mal à
having
m'extraire
trouble
de
extracting
maintenant, quoi.
myself
C'est
from
l'inverse
now.
de-
It was
ça me
asking me some
demandait
sort of
des
efforts
efforts pour
to
conceptualiser maintenant. Donc,
conceptualize
tout devient
things.
euh,
And when you cease
enthousiasme et
to
merveilleux.
conceptualize
Vous prenez une
everything,
petite cuillère, vous
everything
êtes
is
là,
wonderful and marvelous. Like grab a little spoon, look at it without conceptualizing
ça,
it.
c'est une
It's
expérience encore. Après, ça se
incredible.
remet
But
en place une
that,
espèce de-
this is only an experience. This.
Et en fait, il y a aussi une chose
Another
qui est
thing that
certaine,
is
c'est que
really sure
c'est
is
vraiment dans le
it,
cœur.
it happens in the
Dans le
heart.
cœur. C'est pour ça que depuis, je fais un peu des. J'en
I
parle
do
souvent de ça,
talk
et
about
j'insiste
it
là-dessus.
a
C'est dans le
lot,
cœur,
and
une âme
I'm not
de
talking about the
physique,
organic
mais c'est
heart.
dans le cœur que ce que
I'm
je veux dire
talking
par cœur,
about
c'est que c'est par l'amour, et l'amour c'est
Through
ce
love,
que j'ai
and
compris,
from what I've understood,
avec
and
cette
nothing
compréhension mentale,
from
on
the
est
in the
vraiment
mind, but
convaincu.
like
C'est que
love
l'amour est
is
unité.
unity.
C'est-à-dire qu'il y a une
There is a
unité,
unity, and
et
it
ça a commencé
all
avec une
started
lunette,
with a
comme je disais dans une autre
match.
intervention, là.
I saw a match and I blew on the match, and consciousness
Elle est comme,
recognized
reconnue
that
que la
consciousness,
conscience est dans la
which
lumière.
is
En réalité, la physique quantique
in
aussi,
the
c'est
match,
comme ça.
like
Tout
quantum
est
physics
énergie,
say,
tout est
actually,
conscience.
everything is consciousness, and it is
C'est
the
la vérité,
truth,
et
and
c'est
even
tout à fait
science
conscient.
says it now.
Et-
But
et c'est vu, mais
but
ça peut
it
être
can
vu que
be
par le cœur.
seen only by the
C'est
heart,
pas vu avec,
not with
avec
concepts.
des concepts.
You
Et là, vous vous rendez
realize
compte que, en fait, finalement, une fois que vous avez trouvé l'essence,
as soon as you
même de ce
find
que
the
vous êtes,
essence,
c'est
the
la
core
conscience.
of what you are, you realize
Vous
that
réalisez que
the
l'essence
essence,
de
the
tout ce
core
qui
of
est ça
everything
aussi.
is that
Et,
too.
et c'est marrant parce que quand on a écrit
And
tout
we
ça, Gérald nous avait
wrote
dit
that
une
book
phrase
with
que j'avais pas
Gerald,
du tout compris à l'époque. Quand
and
tu
he
réalises
said something that I didn't get the
cela,
first time.
sur le foie,
When you
sur-
realize
sur
the
mon doigt,
consciousness
il dit ça.
at the
Au bout de mon
tip
doigt,
of your
tu réalises la
finger,
totalité.
you realize consciousness
C'est
everywhere at the same time.
exactement ça. Il y a plein de choses qu'il m'a dit
Many
que j'ai
things he
compris
told
après.
me,
Une
I
fois que
actually
j'ai posé la
understood
question, c'est
later.
quoi l'éveil ? Il m'avait dit, quand tu vois une mandarine,
I remember when
c'est
he
bien, hein,
when he
c'était au
told
tout
me,
début,
when you
c'était
see
en
an
2006.
orange,
C'est quoi l'éveil ? Il dit,
what
quand tu vois une
awakening
mandarine,
is.
il y a toutes sortes
When
de
you see an
concepts qui
orange,
viennent sur la
well,
mandarine,
you
sans t'en
don't
rendre
realize when you
compte.
grab one that
C'est
you
orange, ça va avoir tel
have
goût,
lots
tu
of concepts
conceptualises
about
déjà
it.
à
Like
l'avance,
it
en fait. T'es
states,
même plus
its
dans ma
color.
tête, en fait. T'es
You're
déjà
not
dans la
into
mandarine en train de savourer ta
now.
mandarine,
You're,
tu l'aimes
you're
pas.
already into the
Et en
orange,
fait,
and
et,
it's not even open, and you're already into concepts.
et en fait, quand tu
And
passes
when
par
you
le
go
cœur,
through the heart,
et la mandarine est vécue. Je crois que c'est
the
ça,
orange
c'est
is
ça qui m'a dit.
lived.
C'est vécu. Et en fait, ce dont je vous parle là, c'est pas
And
de la
it's
philosophie,
not
c'est pas un truc où on reste dans
philosophy.
le
I'm not
concept,
talking about philosophy,
on va
and
chercher
it's
avec
not
notre
something
tête.
that you have to find with
C'est
your
du
mind.
vécu
It's
pur.
really something that is lived.
Vécu direct.
It's
Et c'est-
direct
c'est là
experience.
tout de suite, parce
It's
que la
really
vie,
here
c'est
now,
une vie, ça-
and you are living
c'est
right here, right
c'est
now.
la même
So
vie qui est à travers
and
tout, même les objets
life
qui-
is present everywhere,
particules,
even in
bougent partout, vibrent
inanimate
partout.
objects.
Et il y a la même conscience.
Consciousness is the same everywhere. And here's an anecdote.
Par un psychologue français qui s'appelait Gérald.
And I used to know a psychologist, a very great one, very known, well-known one, and he was doing conferences. And
Il dit à un moment donné, voilà, la conscience, voilà, tous les êtres.
so he kept talking about consciousness, about, in beings and human beings. Yeah, sure, consciousness.
Mais tout,
But
même
in
les objets,
everything,
ah non, pas
even
du tout, les
inanimate
objets, ils font pas de
objects,
conscience,
right?
pas
Oh,
de
no,
conscience.
that's not
Donc,
true.
j'étais un
That's
peu perturbé, j'ai
And
dit,
I
cette
kept
conférence.
insisting, and he was a bit disturbed by it.
Quelques semaines après, il faisait une autre conférence et il dit.
But anyway, a few weeks afterwards, I was invited again. So he was saying, consciousness is everywhere, and even in inanimate objects. So he had an understanding, and this consciousness, this awareness related to objects that seems to be different from what used to be. At least what you seem to say. The way you talk about consciousness in objects. Have you been through questions, or fears? How can I keep on going? Will I be able to keep going? To adapt? Will I be able to adapt myself? Adapt to this new way of living, in a way? Because I need to work, I need to do my shopping, like things like that. Do they arise, those questions? Because we know about people who had very big experiences like that and they kind of closed down. So was it some sort of choice saying, okay, bye everyone, I'm going into a cave, I don't want to see you anymore? What I mean is, how do you handle that? It's a very practical question, really, but because right now, not right now, but it's been a while now, and I've been going through that, and I'm not sure how to interact with whatever comes through me. And it is important because so how do I welcome all that? Like, if I get angry, for instance, there is this idea that, life is good, anger is not, but those questions, they're not. I just wonder. I've got like tens of questions in my mind. From what I perceive, you saying that anger is not good, then it's just your mind telling yourself a story there, because I know I'm not on the same level, but there's no such things as level. Doesn't it exist? But what you said really talked to me. It's really simple. We really think too much. Even anger, why would we want to discard anger? It's like, we think too much. If I did that, then maybe that means that, and if I did that, maybe that will. Actually, we don't care about that. There's no point. I mean, it's here, and there's a reason for it, and I don't need to understand it. Yeah, my point is more about how do you... How can this anger help me? That's the real question I've got. Anger or sadness, they all mean something, of course, but what do I do with that? So it's here, sure, it's here, but yes, sure, but what do I do with that? Anger might just help you explain yourself a little more. Someone being angry at you might force you to explain yourself a little bit better. Let's talk about that, really. Just so you know, anger has a meaning. Every emotion has a deeper meaning, and anger means I need to be listened to. My values need to be understood.
Donc, alors après, ça renvoie à la question des valeurs. Juste pour revenir par rapport à ce que tu as dit.
Let's rewind a bit.
J'en reviens après.
You asked me. Two things were quite weird to me at first after the shift. Yeah, it might sound strange to have some sort of schedule, because when it happened and I have this experience that everything is accomplished already, so kind of, I just went with the life current. I actually didn't do anything, it just happened on its own. And
par rapport à la
about
peur, en fait,
fear,
il n'y a pas le temps d'avoir peur parce
there's
que la
no
peur,
time to be
en fait,
fearful,
pour qu'il y ait
because
peur,
actually
faut sortir du maintenant.
to feel fear,
Pour
you
qu'il y ait
need
peur,
to
faut qu'il y ait un
be
référentiel
outside
de
of
temps.
time.
Regarde bien, hein.
Look at it
Ça fait
closely, you'll see
référentiel.
that fear is
Donc,
a
non,
construct.
il y a pas de-
So
comme
there's
il y a
no
pas de temps,
time.
il y a que
So
maintenant,
there's
il y a pas de
just
peur.
now. So
Non,
there's no
maintenant, il y a-
fear.
il y a pas de peur. Par rapport à ça, en tout cas. Voilà. Et puis, par rapport aux émotions, alors ce qui est marrant, c'est que
About emotions,
on
well, you
continue à
keep on
vivre
living,
normalement, et
and
notre vie, la plupart de nous ont une vie teintée.
our
de,
lives are
mentale
tinted
et
with,
d'émotions.
emotions and
On est d'accord.
mind.
Je peux prendre
For
un
instance,
exemple qui m'a fait
first,
très bizarre. Ça a été
sexuality
après l'éveil.
right after awakening. It
Là où
was
ça m'a
really
vraiment fait
strange
bizarre,
to
c'est de me rendre
realize
compte
that you can
qu'on peut
have
avoir
a
une
sexuality
c'est-à-dire sur le plan humain
on a human
et
level
voilà,
and
de vivre
live
ça.
this,
Et
and
pourtant,
yet
j'étais-
I was and
je suis
still
toujours, d'ailleurs,
I am
dans
that,
un plan où
where
rien ne
you're
bouge
on a
intérieurement. C'est-à-dire
plane
que
where nothing moves,
en plein
right in the middle
en plein rapport,
of it.
T'es dans un état et là
You're
et
in
c'est sacré.
a
Là, ça
state
fait
that
bizarre,
is
parce
sacred.
que moi qui viens à 19
Just so
ans,
you
j'ai
know,
voulu
when I
faire,
was
pendant
19,
17
when I
ans,
was 19 years old, and
j'ai toujours
for
essayé,
maybe
oscillé
15 years
entre
I've been
17 ans, les 3
oscillating
dernières années,
between
les 2 dernières non, mais pendant 15 ans, j'ai oscillé entre
am I
moins
going to be a
5 ans.
monk or not?
Donc,
Because
parce que pour moi,
something
il y avait
was
un truc,
not
c'était pas,
quite
voilà.
settled.
Et là, j'ai
So,
compris qu'en fait, je
and
peux
I
tout faire, je
realized
serai toujours le
that
même.
I can do anything,
Tellement que j'ai
I'll
eu
still
cette
be the
pensée, bon, elle a
same.
pas duré
And
longtemps, mais j'ai
even
eu
that
cette pensée qui peut
thought
paraître
came
dingue.
to me,
Je
which
me suis dit,
will sound crazy, and
j'espère que
please,
je vais
people, do
pas
not
faire
take
ça
that
pour
on
bête,
the first,
mais je me suis dit,
first
pour
degree,
moi-même,
but I
prendre
could,
un pistolet, je vais faire
grab a
tuer plein de
gun
gens.
and kill people
Par exemple, si je devais,
if I,
voilà. Dans une condition où
in
j'aurais
some
besoin de
conditions
faire
where
ça,
I would
je pourrais
have
le
to do
faire,
that, I
ça ne
could,
changerait rien à ce que je
I
fais.
would be able
J'ai
to do
compris la
it,
Bhagavad Gita qui
and
dit,
it wouldn't
tu
change
peux
me.
tuer,
I understood the
en fait,
Bhagavad
il y a
Gita.
ni
There is
naissance
no
ni
such
mort.
thing as
On ne-
death
voilà, on ne peut
or
pas
birth.
tuer,
Killing
un
isn't
qui
possible
monte
in a
pas.
way that you can't
Évidemment,
kill the immortal. What's
quand t'es
immortal?
identifié au
What's
karma,
eternal? So when you're identified to karma, this is not really
sauf
good for
si,
you,
évidemment,
because
il y a un cas où ça
unless
peut être fait pour,
unless
il y a tout
it's
un tas
written
de-
like that. But
Mais du
anyway,
point de vue de la
from the
conscience absolue,
consciousness
tout est
point of
sacré,
view,
tout est possible.
everything is
Et ça
possible
n'impacte
and
jamais
sacred.
sur ce qu'on est.
It doesn't impact consciousness,
Et
and
donc, ça
it
fait
is a
bizarre.
bit weird.
Parce que les choses, les
It's a
dernières
bit
petites
strange.
choses que je trouvais
So
peut-être
the very little
impues, entre
things,
guillemets,
last
c'est
things
vrai
I
que
would
de la
might
colère, comme
find
tu dis,
some sort of,
jugement de colère,
impure,
une colère qui monte.
like anger, or
Et là, ça
And
pourrait
it could be
être catalogué
categorised
comme
as
étant quelque chose
less
de moins bien,
good
de pas bien, de pas
or
pas
bad.
voilà, de pas,
I shouldn't
je
be
devrais
doing
pas
that
faire ça
because
parce que
an awakened
éveillé, ça fait pas ça.
someone
Un
awakened
éveillé, ça fait pas la
can't
même.
do that.
Éveillé, ça fait pas
Enlightened
rapport
people
sexuel.
don't have sex.
Et en fait, alors après, évidemment, ça,
Well, it
ça
does
change.
change, of course.
Le
Desire is
désir
not
n'est pas du tout
lived
pareil.
the same way.
Les
Emotions.
émotions sont
One of your
pas
masters actually told you to choose between life with a partner
Ah
or
oui, oui, oui.
Entre
life
ça,
as a monk,
entre la vie de couple
life
Oui,
as a
et la vie
renunciant,
Ouais.
Ah, il me semble
Et ça,
bien
c'est-
que tu
oui, oui,
m'avais
and
exactement.
that's
Ça,
true,
c'est
and
l'illusion.
that's illusion.
La
Renunciation
en
is
fait,
something
c'est quelque chose de très
absolutely
beau.
beautiful,
Ça n'a
and it
rien
has
à
nothing to do
voir
with the
avec
idea
l'idée
that
qu'on en
we
a
have
de
to
renoncer, humainement
let
parlant,
go
à
of
quelque chose.
something that we
C'est pas
like.
ça.
Renunciation
La
is
renonciation, c'est de tout, c'est juste
is
de
to
renoncer au
renounce
petit
to
moi limité et de tout
the little
enlever,
me
de tout
and
embrasser.
and
La vraie
and
renonciation,
welcoming
c'est quand on embrasse
everything.
tout,
That's
quand on
true
enlève.
renunciation.
Et donc renoncer
It's
au petit moi.
letting go
alors,
of the little me. So
après-
afterwards, after the shift,
Après la réalisation, il peut y avoir
There still
encore
can
des
be
mouvements humains, voilà, donc
inner
des mouvements
movement,
intérieurs, donc des
emotions
émotions
that can
qui peuvent,
arise.
émerger.
It's very
Alors,
funny
c'est très drôle
because
parce que
it's seen,
c'est vu,
noticed,
et alors là,
and you see the
tu vois la
mechanism.
mécanique. En fait, comme on est dans une histoire de conscience, comme on est dans une affaire de
So,
conscience,
consciousness
la conscience voit. C'est pour ça que les premiers
sees.
sages, on
That's
les
why
appelait
the
rishis.
first sages
La
were called
conscience voit
rishi,
très précisément, très clair.
those who see, and consciousness sees clearly.
Par exemple,
Like
la perception du toucher.
the
Moi, j'ai
touching
redécouvert le toucher
sense.
après cette
I
réalisation.
rediscovered this
C'était un
sense.
sens que
That,
je
that
n'explorais
wasn't
pas
something I
trop.
was
Donc,
aware of
et donc,
much.
rien que par
And
exemple, je
I ended
touchais
up
une tasse,
T-
je disais, ouais,
touching
c'est vachement
a
doux.
cup,
Moi, je sais pas
and I
comment dire.
realized,
Il y
wow,
avait
this
des
is so
perceptions qui étaient
smooth.
beaucoup
A
plus,
cup is very smooth.
plus accrues.
It's very,
C'est
very
précis.
precise, and
Ouais,
it's
c'est
quite
Ressentir.
it's quite
En fait,
tantric,
quand tu
isn't
vas
it?
au
Yes.
fond de la
And
sensation,
any
n'importe quelle
sensations,
sensation,
you realize that
que c'est
it's a
vibratoire.
vibration,
vous allez au
and if
fond de
you
la
go
vibration,
deep
de la
within
vibration,
it,
qu'est-ce qui
what
crée le mouvement
creates
vibratoire? Là, ça va
this
un peu
movement,
pour
this
méditer là-dessus,
vibration
par exemple,
movement,
vibration. Le mouvement vibratoire, c'est la
what
joie
creates it
qui
is
le crée, en
joy.
fait.
It's
C'est la joie.
stillness
l'expression
expressing
d'immobilité
itself
qui crée le
that
mouvement.
creates
Et là, il y a de la joie.
movement. And
Si vous
this
allez
is where you
vraiment
find joy,
à la source
when you
même.
go at the core of
Et
it.
donc,
So to go back to
pour en
what you
revenir
were
à ce que tu
saying,
dis, l'émotion, ça veut
ex
dire,
movere in Latin
movere, en
means
latin, je ne sais pas si tu savais, ça veut dire
moving out of
bouger
yourself.
hors de
So
soi-même. Les
emotions
émotions
are
de
decentering
descendre, ça me met
myself,
hors de moi, comme je disais,
decentering me, like
Et
to
ce qui
be
est
out of my
intéressant, c'est de
mind,
voir
out of myself. And
comment
what's
ça se
interesting is
manifeste
to see
cette
the mechanism
Alors,
underneath.
l'émotion,
Emotion
elle se manifeste dans le
rises,
corps. Le corps
manifests
est un merveilleux outil
in the body.
qui nous permet
The body is a
de conscientiser,
gorgeous
c'est
tool
pour ça
to
qu'on est là, hein,
be
avec
aware.
le corps.
So you
Vous voyez
just
l'émotion qui
see
arrive,
the
en
emotion
général, si c'est un truc
arising.
viscéral, justement, ça va être plutôt là. Ça
And
part
if
bien, de toute façon, le langage
it's
courant,
visceral,
il y a une
well,
conscience
it's
derrière.
usually
Donc,
here.
ça va être ici.
Language is
On va rentrer
quite
dans la
good.
sensation. Donc,
So
l'accueil, c'est
what
ça.
you do is you
Tu vas
get
rentrer
into the
dans la
sensation.
au fond,
You go deep
au
into
fond
it.
de ce qui se passe. Vraiment,
How does it
comment ça s'exprime? Tu vas te rendre compte que c'est vibratoire, parce que tout
how
est
does it
vibratoire.
express
La
itself?
sensation.
What happens is
Et là, ce qui va se
emotion
passer,
is
c'est
going
que
to bring up,
l'émotion, elle va
I
avoir
call it
tendance à-
to
on
flash.
appelle ça flasher.
It's going to
C'est-à-dire
bring
qu'elle
up
va- elle va
images
envoyer des images
usually related to time and
qui ont à
space,
voir avec le temps et l'espace.
maybe in the
Je sais
future,
pas
maybe
si
in
ce
the
sera dans le
past,
futur ou dans le
but
passé,
it
mais en
has
tout cas, ça a à
something
voir
to do
avec
with your
votre
experience, your own
Ok,
experience.
on est jusqu'ici, on est OK.
It flashes.
Donc ça flash. Et
The more it
plus ça
flashes,
flash, plus ça en remet
the
une
more
couche.
sensations you get.
Donc,
So you welcome
on
everything,
accueille
all the
les
flashes,
flashs,
but
mais
you
on
don't
ne
go
suit
with
pas.
it.
Parce que si on
So
suit, on
if you
quitte,
go with it, you
on quitte
actually
maintenant.
leave
C'est comme
now.
les pensées.
Like
Les pensées ne
thoughts,
sont pas... Il n'y a pas de problème avec les pensées.
they're just thoughts. There's nothing wrong with them.
Comment dire? Les pensées,
Thoughts
elles apparaissent dans maintenant,
arise
elles
in
repartent dans
now,
maintenant.
and
Vous quittez pas ce
they
que vous êtes
live
quand vous
in
voyez des
now.
pensées qui
There's
émergent.
nothing to do
Juste
about it.
pas les
No need
suivre
to
et pas y
follow them
croire.
and no need to
C'est ça,
believe them.
l'illusion,
That's
c'est
the
de
illusion.
se
It's
faire
to get
complètement happer
absolutely
par ça.
absorbed
L'émotion,
by
c'est
them.
pareil.
And
Et là,
same
y a
with
pas de problème avec
emotions.
l'émotion.
Just
la
see
voir,
them.
mais juste
Do not
pas
follow
la
them.
suivre, donc avec les flashs et tout ça.
And to
et
not
pas y
believe
croire.
them.
Et y croire, ça veut dire,
Believing it means
comment dire, c'est pas de dire je suis, parce que des fois en fait on pense je suis en colère dans le
because
sens
we
je
sometimes
suis la
think that
colère.
I'm angry, so
Et la
I am
colère, regardez
anger.
bien,
But
la
no,
colère c'est un
that's
objet.
something that you see. It's an object that you can see.
Ok, donc là on va un peu plus loin. Une
So,
fois que vous avez bien senti
let's
comment
go a
ça se
little
passe,
bit
on va un peu
further.
plus loin. Et là vous vous posez la question, vous faites le chemin, vous
So,
voyez
who is
vu
it
par
seen by? It's always coming
toujours
back
la
to the
source.
same place,
Ok,
same
vu par
thing.
qui.
Who is
Si c'est
seeing?
difficile, demandez-vous, est-ce qu'il y a un espace entre ceux-là qui
So,
voient la colère et la colère
Is there a
elle-même?
space
Est-ce qu'il y a
in
un
between
espace entre les
what
deux?
sees the anger
C'est
and
très, très concret,
anger?
hein, ce que je dis,
It's
c'est pas
very
du tout,
concrete what I'm saying here.
philosophique,
There's
hein,
nothing
c'est-
philosophical here. Just
Et là, vous
look
allez vous
and
rendre
you
compte qu'il y a
realize
un
that there's
espace,
some sort of
effectivement,
space.
entre les deux.
Same with
Comme les
thoughts.
pensées, il y a un espace, elles apparaissent dans un espace.
There's
Comme
even a
il y a un
space
espace,
around
entre guillemets, de la colère. La colère,
anger.
c'est
It's just a
un point dans un espace.
spot, a speck in space.
Maintenant, la question fondamentale, c'est
And
est-ce que l'espace
now
il est
the big
affecté?
question, is the space
Et là,
affected
vous
by
allez
anger?
regardez bien, vous allez
Look,
voir que l'espace
see for
n'est pas
yourself.
affecté.
You realize that space is
Donc, la
never
colère,
impacted by
elle va
anger.
vous aider à vous éveiller.
So anger can help you
Vous l'aviez
awaken.
bien fait, hein,
Everything actually
Vous êtes
helps you
à vous éveiller.
to awaken.
À partir
As
du
long as
moment
you
où vous prenez conscience
realize that there's a
qu'il y a un
space
espace qui perçoit et qui n'est jamais affecté
being
par ce
aware
qui est
of
perçu,
what arising,
là vous vous
then
réveillez.
that's
c'est juste
just it.
Et il n'y a
There's
pas d'autre moyen.
nothing
La
else.
fuite, ça marche pas.
Do not try to
Le
run
schéma de
away. Do
compensation,
not
je vais
try
prendre
to
un
eat
gâteau
some
au chocolat. Ça peut
chocolate
marcher,
cake.
temporairement,
That
mais ça
might
marche
work,
pas
but
bien
not for
longtemps.
long. It doesn't work
Ça
really.
ne marche
The
pas. Le
only
seul
way
moyen de
is
s'éveiller,
to see,
c'est de voir. C'est de voir
notice
le mécanisme.
the mechanism.
Comment ça fonctionne. C'est
That's why
ça
we
qui
call
réussit,
them
c'est ceux qui
rishi,
voient, hein. C'est
those who
simple.
see. The wisdom
La
is to
sagesse, c'est
see
juste de voir
what's
ce qui est
true,
vrai. C'est tout.
the reality as it
La
is.
réalité telle qu'elle est.
It's
C'est
very simple,
très simple en fait.
so simple.
Donc ça vaut le coup
It
d'aller
is
se poser
actually
pour ça.
quite a good thing to
La prochaine fois que ça arrive, dites-vous
sit
chouette, une
with
colère,
whatever
allez,
rise.
je m'assieds, je me pose, comment c'est
So
Comment
it's
c'est la
like,
colère Allez, on y
oh,
va.
good,
On va voir
something is
dedans, quoi.
arising.
Oui, mais tout ce que tu dis par rapport à la colère,
This is about anger. This is what I'm living.
je vois très
Ok.
bien.
I can see,
Je vois très bien et je ressens tantriquement
I can feel
Ok, super.
on a tantric level what you're saying, 100% what you're saying. And
Pour pas mettre mais, et il y a encore
there's still, don't know how to say it, an energy
Ouais.
which wishes to express itself through that. Might be the ego that you were talking about, but there's also, with that, it is seen very clearly. I don't know for now, but I know it's less than before, I can see that. And before, it had to be expressed. That's not it. It's not that big, that strong. But if I dig, is it a belief? I don't know. But if it's not expressed, there's something that's not heard, there's a frustration. I know that frustration is also an emotion that arises and it manifests itself, but right now, even if it's really well seen, I can see and am aware, yet it is still happening, and there's still a part of you that believes it's not stable. I can see that it's not stable. So there's two possibilities.
La possibilité peut-être à court terme, ce que tu peux faire
short term is
c'est calmer un petit peu le jeu et exprimer la valeur qui n'a pas été ce que tu
calm things down and just express what wasn't expressed before, probably one of your values. Just say it very, very calmly, from love, actually, from the heart.
Voilà. Maintenant,
but now, yes, it is a belief. There's the belief that it needs to be expressed, and that's what's happening, and it's beautiful. But every emotion, it's crystallized energy from consciousness it's crystallized into density in the body, like the ego. That's the reason why we feel so finite and limited. It creates a tension within. If you go into it, while being aware, with light, like Jesus said, you're the light of the world, and go and put light into it, and just see it. It's gonna relax. And you'll realize, you actually do not necessarily need to go with it. It can actually drop.
Après, il y a un moment donné où ça va même plus cristalliser.
At some point, you realize that it's just gonna pass through. You'll see the anger and see, well, no, not gonna go with it. It already happened to you. What I'm tired from, or
ces moments, on est encore dans un temps qui serait linéaire, c'est pas le cas, mais
it's this questioning, this frustration, this anger, which is linked to it. Why, and who's asking the question, I know, but why there's no effort from time to time, and why sometimes it's something comes up, but it's not. There's no problem, and things come up, and I'm not identified to it. So it can be so fluid sometimes. Like you said, do I have to make an effort to be? No. But sometimes I can feel an effort. I don't know who is doing that, but there's an effort, almost a fight, to make it go away. I know it's paradoxical and contradictory, but there's an effort not to have any effort to do. No, that's just because you're in the middle of fluctuations of being. You're going back and forth. You're still going back and forth, but that's normal. you're
T'es en train de t'asseoir,
sitting
en fait. En fait, t'es en train
in
de t'asseoir et t'es habillé.
establishing yourself into awakening. So, well, it is a bit tiring.
T'aurais dû essayer l'autre chaise, là. T'aurais dû essayer l'autre chaise, c'est pas mal.
You're just going back and
Tu
forth.
fais les allers-retours,
That's it.
ça va
It's
venir, hein.
coming. It's
Ça
on
en
its
train de
way.
venir, de toute façon. Mais
And
rappelle-toi que t'as
believe-
fait l'expérience, parce qu'on a-
Just
on a
remember,
discuté,
this
cette fameuse
anger,
colère qui
you could
passait,
see
tu la
this
voyais, te
anger
rappelles pas,
coming
on
up
le disait,
and,
j'ai vu
and
passer, ah, tiens,
going
c'est
by,
ça.
and you just
Très
let go of
facilement,
it.
en plus, hein.
Very
Avec
detached,
détachement.
so you
Donc,
know. You already
tu
know.
sais.
That's true.
Ouais, ouais.
You already know
C'est
everything.
déjà tout.
En fait, à un moment donné, le fait de voir, le fait
Consciousness,
la conscience qui
seeing,
voit, ça se
clarifies so
tellement
many
que
things.
il y a la perception et ce qui est perçu est clairement
Perception and what is being
tu vois,
perceived
la perception, elle est là.
is very
ce qui est
clear.
perçu,
It's like
enfin, c'est
there's
l'image,
consciousness
c'est
and
dans le
what is
sens,
perceived. It's just an
c'est-
image, but you know,
c'est vraiment vu que c'est pas
it's
toi.
seen that
et
it's
c'est
not you,
vraiment,
and it's very
donc,
clear.
il y a un moment, ouais, c'est ça, ce discernement va s'affûter.
This acuity will become sharper and sharper.
Tu ne pourras juste plus y croire, quoi.
And at some point, you won't be able to believe
Et-
Oui, j'ai eu des moments de.
and
j'ai eu des moments
believe
de
it
colère,
anymore,
hein.
believe it any of the
Je voyais ça
world
arriver,
anymore.
Ça me faisait rire parce que
Ouais.
comment
On en a
j'ai pu
parlé
me faire
déjà.
choper
It
par
is
ça,
quite
et
funny
le
to see
lendemain,
yourself,
boum,
talk about how, I'm detached, and the day after that, you just fall into the trap,
Mais c'est déjà
but
vécu.
it's known
Donc,
already.
Oui, oui.
As
Ouais,
soon
vécu, c'est
as
là.
it's lived, it's
fait,
good.
Ça
It's
restera,
never
ça
going
partira
to
jamais.
go away.
Ouais, exactement.
That's it.
Et
And
la
consciousness
ne laisse rien passer. Enfin, je veux dire, la conscience ne se laisse plus
doesn't
aveugler
get
par rien.
blindsided
Même
by
la
any
poussière
single
d'insatisfaction de
thing,
quoi que
not
ce
even
soit
a
est tout de suite
dust,
vue et tout-
a speck of
Vous voyez,
insatisfaction.
ça peut pas,
Non,
ça
No.
n'a pas lieu
ça
d'être.
n'adhère pas, ça glisse.
Ouais.
Ça peut plus.
It's just
Donc,
slipping
même ça,
by
si tu le
consciousness.
sens,
It's not.
Va voir direct. C'est,
Holding
par exemple,
on.
un jour on est un peu plus fatigué. La fatigue, souvent, l'ego, il s'en sert un peu là.
Being
Donc,
tired is a
t'es
good thing,
fatigué.
and the ego
là,
can
j'ai beaucoup
actually
dormi.
grab
Et
grab
donc,
that.
je sens dans mon corps, il y
I
a des
can
trucs,
feel
hein,
that
dans mon
there's
corps.
tensions
Dans le
in the
corps.
body, really.
Il y a des trucs, et
So
donc il
there's
y a des petites
tensions.
tensions. Et c'est
And it
c'est
is
vu que c'est juste des objets
noticed
qui
and
apparaissent dans le champ
that
de
it's
conscience.
just
C'est pas du tout
objects appearing as
identifié
in
comme étant moi, en
consciousness.
fait.
It's not me, I'm not identified to
On
that.
s'imagine que
We
l'éveil,
think
c'est la
that
libération
Awakening,
du
enlightenment
ressentir,
is
parce
the
que Bouddha
end
dit,
of
c'est la fin de la
feeling
souffrance. C'est vrai, c'est la
or
fin de la souffrance,
perceiving,
de souffrance.
because the Buddha says
Je pense que le
you are
libérer de la
liberated
mort,
from
libérer
suffering. And that's
de
true,
l'idée de
really.
l'accomplissement
You're
d'une mission
liberated from the idea of
personnelle qui n'arrivera
being
jamais,
someone in
parce
the
que
world
le
and
moi
accomplish
personnel ne sera
anything.
jamais
But,
accompli, hein.
so that's
C'est évident, il y a des
obvious
multimilliardaires qui se suicident.
that
donc,
that's
ou-
not
ou
how you
des
can get
champions,
happiness, because
multi-champions
there's,
olympiques
Olympic
qui
champions
sont
or
heureux.
even
Donc, si c'était
billionaires
un accomplissement,
killing
ça
themselves.
serait
So
accompli
if
tout le temps,
if
voilà. Donc,
wholeness was
Euh,
possible
l'idée, c'est
as
vraiment-
a human being, we would know.
l'invitation,
But the
c'est
invite
vraiment de se
is
rendre
to
compte que
Realize that
il y a ouais,
there's
il y a
this
cette
consciousness
conscience qui est là,
that is here,
et
and there's
il y a tout ce qui est
everything that is
perçu, et
perceived,
tout ce qui est perçu,
and
n'adhère
nothing
pas, c'est
holds on. Or even
plutôt est à
better,
sa place,
everything
tu
is
vois, est à sa
as it's
place.
as
Et il n'y a pas de problème.
its place,
En fait,
and
c'est
it's
cool.
cool.
Et même la dualité, il n'y a pas de
Everything has a
problème.
place. Duality is okay. Even duality is
Même,
okay. Even
Même les
things
choses qui nous,
who might
qui nous
appear-
paraissaient avant, vraiment
might have
difficiles à
appeared
porter,
hard
tout,
for us
pas
to
de problème.
bear
Il n'y a pas de problème
before,
avec le ressenti.
well then there's no
La
more
souffrance
problem
est
to
résolue, il y a encore un ressenti.
feel.
Il y a même des grands sages, beaucoup de grands sages qui ont eu des choses très graves, hein, enfin des très,
Like
entre guillemets,
great
des cancers, tout
sages
ça.
had
Beaucoup, même.
Beaucoup,
health
beaucoup.
problems,
Ils avaient pas de
and
problème
they
avec le
had no
ressentir.
problems with that.
Regardez Ramana
Like
Maharshi
huge,
ou d'autres,
very
ils ont
big
le sourire
cancers,
aux lèvres, alors qu'ils
and
ont
they're
une
still
tumeur
smiling,
énorme
and they did
dans
feel
son
the
bras.
pain, but
Parce que,
that's
bah,
all right,
la
because
perception, elle est quelque
perceiving
part.
is not impacted
Voilà, il y a
by,
un détachement. Ce qui
the
ne veut pas
suffering.
dire
doesn't mean that
que, voilà, que des fois, bon, ce qu'on pourrait poser la question, oui,
Because
mais
we could
Jésus, pourquoi
wonder,
il a dit,
like, think about
éloigne
Jesus
de moi cette coupe avant la crucifixion, ou,
saying,
d'autres trucs,
why did you
pourquoi tu
abandon
m'as
me
abandonné,
while he was on
sur
the
la croix,
cross?
tout ça.
maybe,
peut-être,
I don't know.
j'en sais rien, parce que
I'm not trying to
je conceptualise pas, mais
conceptualize it
peut-être que dans
here,
des situations de
but
souffrance
maybe
extrême,
in an
il
extreme
pourrait y avoir un petit quand même
position
bon,
of suffering,
j'aimerais bien quand même
you might
passer à autre
have the
chose.
thought
Mais
coming up.
bon,
All right, I'd be happy to
mais
go
pour autant,
to
on
something
sait ce
else,
qu'on est.
to live something else.
C'est ce qu'on est.
But
Et ça c'est jamais
but
perdu.
really, you can't lose what you are.
Tu
You
peux pas
can't.
perdre ce
You
que
can't
tu es.
lose what you are.
C'est pour ça que
C'est
c'est si
impossible.
la conscience. C'est
That's why
tellement
consciousness
précieux,
is so
parce que c'est
precious,
tellement-
because
parce que
this
ça, on
is
pourra
the
jamais vous
one
le prendre,
thing
on pourra
that
jamais vous le voler, on pourra jamais.
you'll
peut pas être
never,
perdu, ça peut-
Ça
never
peut pas être tué, ça peut pas être.
Ça veut rien dire.
be
volé.
taken away from you.
Donc c'est pour ça que c'est
You can't
essentiel.
get killed, can't get stolen.
Je suis pas revenu à Paris depuis cette
I haven't been
réalisation. Et
back
quand
to
j'étais,
Paris since that shift. And
je me suis pas posé la question, mais quand j'étais dans le métro,
So,
je voyais toute cette agitation.
when I was in the
ici, quand même, ça bouge
subway,
plus que là où je suis, là où je vis.
there was
Et,
so much agitation,
Et c'était marrant parce que
very different from
je
where I
voyais
live.
tout ça, et c'est comme si ça mettait
And I
en
was
relief encore plus.
noticing that, and it was actually
Et donc, je fermais les yeux,
revealing
je
the
disais,
calm
c'est toujours-
behind it, the stillness behind it, and that's
C'est génial.
incredible.
Ça ne
That's
fluctue pas,
amazing.
malgré, il pourrait y avoir, et puis c'est plus c'était hier ou ce matin, mais il y a eu un moment où il y a eu des
The other
cours, on
day
était
or
compressés.
yesterday, we were
Et tout
like
ça, c'était,
compressed
pour l'ego.
into
Il y avait
the
plein de gens qui
metro.
gueulaient un peu
The
des-
ego was,
Pour l'ego, ça
you
peut
know,
être mal
not
vécu,
mine,
ça.
but people
Et je voyais,
were
c'était
going through a
vraiment
rough time, and
l'habitude,
I
quoi.
could see that
Je me
I
rends
was
compte que
just
ça change rien, quoi. Quel que soit ce qui arrive.
blissful.
Et puis, même en
Even
concentration, l'autre
in
jour, j'ai vu une vidéo de
concentration
Satprem. Vous
camps.
connaissez peut-être Satprem.
I don't know if you know
C'est
about
quelqu'un qui
Satprem.
partage
Satprem.
Je sais pas s'il est encore dans son
I
corps.
don't know if he's still in the
Eh
body,
ben,
Avec mère.
but
Satprem,
he was
il était
in
en
concentration
Et
camp.
il dit,
And-
de là où je suis,
And
avec cette
what he said
conscience-là, même
was,
en
From
concentration,
where I am now,
ça ne changerait rien. Parce que
concentration
il y a
camp
des
doesn't change a
identifications
thing.
entre la
Because
perception et ce qui est vu.
What's perceived is what is perceiving is disidentified from what is perceived,
Et c'est pas
and it's not that
si
hard.
difficile que ça,
If
si
you
on
don't
le
run
fait
away, if you
pas,
just
on
look
voit
at
juste
things
les
the way
choses
they
telles
are,
qu'elles sont et qu'on
just look at
regarde
them.
comme c'est. Parce qu'en fait, c'est cool. Vous êtes dans un
It's
endroit
actually good.
complètement
You're
sécuritaire,
very,
il y a-
very
vous êtes dans un
safe
canapé,
place.
quoi.
You're in a
Il y a pas de
couch,
problème.
really.
Ouais.
You are
Vous êtes dans le
into the
vous êtes dans le
chair,
fauteuil,
and there's a
puis devant il y a l'écran de cinéma.
screen, a movie screen in front of you.
C'est parce qu'il y a la
Because
perception
there's
du
a
toucher, on
touch
s'imagine
sense,
que c'est
touching
plus
sense.
intense que
We
quand on regarde un
think
film.
that it's more intense than in a movie. It appears
Pareil,
so,
mais-
but it's
mais non, en
not.
fait. Vous n'êtes pas dans le.
You're not in the movie with all the problems of the movie.
Est-ce qu'il y a de
Did
très-
I
est-ce que j'ai
answer
répondu
your
à votre
question?
question, ou-
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Merci, Pierre.
Is there any more questions?
Choses qui viennent.
You were talking about karma earlier. So it doesn't exist?
Non, parce
No,
que,
it doesn't,
en fait,
because
pour
you
qu'il y ait un
need
karma,
time
faut un
for karma. Do we agree on that?
On est d'accord? Ouais. Donc, ouais.
Le
Karma
n'existe que
exists
parce que-
only because you believe
que parce que tu
you're
crois
not
que tu n'es pas réalisé.
enlightened.
Quand tu es
When
conscient
you are
d'être,
conscious
pure
of
conscience,
being pure consciousness,
à quoi- où aurait sa place là-dedans d'être la pure conscience?
where
La
could
place d'un
karma
ça n'a pas
find a
sens.
place there,
Voilà.
a
Ça
room there?
n'existe que
It,
pour ça. Entre guillemets, ça existe.
it's only an
Parce que c'est
illusion.
une illusion, en fait.
But
Mais il a un but.
Bien sûr.
There's
Se
a
rappeler justement
there's a
que-
goal to
Voilà.
karma, is to remind you that you're beyond karma. So thank you,
Oui,
karma.
merci,
Thank you, life. Thank you,
Merci la vie, merci
incarnation.
l'incarnation.
Even
Et même merci. Ouais.
Tout
everything
nous
is
sert
a tool.
d'outil, de toute façon. Mais ce ne sont que des outils.
even
Même
thank
merci
you
la
to
souffrance.
Ouais,
suffering. Suffering is without
Sans aller
you
la
know
chercher,
going
Mais
look
il y a pas
for
besoin d'aller chercher la souffrance, mais
suffering,
la
but whatever
souffrance, qui
suffering
se
comes
présente
up
est là pour
is
pointer
actually here to
vers là où il n'y a pas de
point
souffrance. En fait.
this
La souffrance met en
space
relief
where
là où en
this
vous il n'y a pas de souffrance.
thing in you where
C'est
there's
fait pour,
no suffering,
comme la dualité
like
met en relief
duality.
l'unité.
puts light onto
Donc le chemin,
unity.
La plupart du temps, le chemin,
Most of the
la
time,
plupart du temps, parce que
the
des
path
fois, il y a des
is-
éveils spontanés, mais la plupart du temps, on passe d'une étape où il y a
path is
relation, un peu comme voilà,
from some sort of
une relation
relation,
amoureuse,
like
en fait, c'est une voie d'amour, hein, c'est
love
vraiment
relationship.
l'amour qui guide, et peu importe la voie que vous
and it's
utilisez,
always love that is guiding you, actually. So it's always going to be
le courant d'amour
the
qui se fait
love
spontanément
current
pour
that is actually
atteindre
progressing
cette unité, atteindre entre guillemets.
to attain this
Au
unity.
début, on commence dans
So
une
you
voie où il y a
start
une
off
relation,
with
c'est-à-dire que sujet-objet,
uh,
je médite sur
you start a
quelque chose,
relationship with
je
objects.
chante,
So I meditate
telle,
on
telle
this
chose
thing. I
envers quelque chose,
sing
envers
to
l'univers
this
ou envers un
thing
truc. Et puis,
up to the
jusqu'à
point
arriver à
of
fusion. Donc, il y a
fusion.
besoin de la dualité
So there's a need
pour
for
arriver
duality
à l'unité.
to
Il y a besoin de la relation
find
pour
unity,
arriver
to
à la fusion, en fait. Je sais pas si c'est très... Ce que je veux dire, c'est que
it's
c'est l'amour
love
qui fait ça,
doing
en fait.
that.
Il y a pas de... C'est l'amour qui va faire
Love is
l'union,
gonna
tu vois.
unify.
Et finalement, on a... Pour l'ego, ça fait un peu bizarre, mais
And
on n'a pas
the
le choix
ego
grand-chose,
doesn't like it,
parce
but
parce
there's
que ce chemin
not
d'amour-là,
many
c'est quelque chose
choices,
un peu spontané, quelque part. C'est le
because
courant de la
this
vie qui
path
s'exprime,
is actually kind of choiceless. It's
et l'union,
love is
est
just
au
doing
bout de
its
toute
thing,
façon. Voilà.
and union is at the end.
C'est certain.
There's
Ça, y a aucun
no
doute.
doubt about that. Gerald was saying
D'ailleurs,
yesterday,
dans les Écritures,
Krishna
dit,
was
quel que
saying,
soit votre chemin,
whatever the path,
immanquablement, vous parviendrez à moi.
you'll always come back to me.
Ah ouais,
Can't be
immanquablement.
Ça peut pas être autrement.
any other way.
Quelle que soit la voie qu'on emprunte,
Whatever the path.
dans les textes, il est dit, même si
Even
votre voie,
if
c'est la
you're
flagellation, immanquablement, vous
Hitting
passez à
yourself, you know, if
Ça peut pas
you're become a martyr, that's
C'est
You're going.
obligatoire parce que si vous regardez ce que vous voulez, on veut tous le bonheur absolu.
so.
Hein, le
What we
bonheur,
are
la
looking for,
plénitude.
all of us, we
Et,
want
on
some
veut un bonheur
wholeness,
constant,
which
et
is
on veut un bonheur qui soit
constant, permanent,
euh,
and always
toujours
new.
renouvelé. Non, on se lasse pas. Parce qu'un bonheur constant qui est toujours le même, on finirait par s'en lasser. Donc, ça doit toujours le renouveler. Et ça, c'est
And that's what we are
exactement ce qu'on est en fait.
already.
C'est ce qu'on est déjà. Et donc on va
So we
expérimenter plein de choses.
experiment
et tout ça,
many,
jusqu'à
many
trouver
things
le truc
up to the point where you
qui justement le bonheur constant et
Up to
qui
the
est,
point where
qui est tout le temps renouvelé. Tout le temps
there's this happiness
même et renouvelé en même temps.
that is constantly renewed,
C'est pas évident à définir. Mais,
something that is stable, happiness that is stable, that doesn't fluctuate, permanent.
Moi j'ai une question. Alors c'est purement mental à mon avis. Ah, voilà, on se refait pas. Non, mais
So I have a question, very mental one, but anyway.
quand tu dis par exemple, c'est des petits exemples, mais c'est l'amour. Tout à l'heure quand on va dans les films,
So you
c'est la
keep
joie.
talking about
Ouais.
joy and
Avec mon mental,
love, but
cette
with my
valeur,
mind,
ça veut
from
dire
my
que ça,
mind, those are
c'est quand même
emotions.
des émotions. Donc,
Actually,
En fait,
les
no.
émotions qu'on a nous,
Ouais.
moi Stéphane, et cette de joie qui est
Ouais.
à mon petit niveau.
Ouais.
Mais
So this
mais cette
joy,
qu'il y a,
when you look at
à
things
fond des choses,
deeply,
Mm.
bah,
what's
c'est
the
quoi
difference?
En
Well,
fait,
it's
c'est pas
not
une
an
émotion
emotion.
qui est adapté au mien. Alors dans ce cas, c'est pas de la joie.
It's not an emotion, it's a sentiment. It's important to
de
clarify.
clarifier ça
C'est
parce
ça, je veux dire,
que
l'amour aussi, quand on dit l'amour
Et
universel,
très-
c'est de l'amour ou c'est...
It's
Non,
not
non,
a human
c'est
love,
pas l'amour
it's
humain.
not a
Et c'est
human
pas la joie
joy.
humaine.
When I
Je
talk
parle pas-
about love
là,
and
quand
joy,
je dis
and
ça,
it's
très
very
important de
important to
préciser.
clarify that.
Souvent ça revient, mais
Ouais.
je comprends un peu.
Donc,
c'est important d'en
c'est
parler.
très important de voir ça. En fait, la
Joy
joie,
and
l'amour et tout ça,
Love is
c'est
what
ce qu'on
we
est
are
fondamentalement.
fundamentally.
Comment je le sais
How do I
C'est
know
simple,
that?
vous regardez des petits,
Look at
n'importe quels petits animaux, quasiment,
any
des petits
animals
petits-
or
même des
even
petits enfants,
kids.
en fait, vous voulez jouer. En
The
fait.
only thing you
Vous
want
avez
is
peut-être oublié,
to
mais
play, really.
On veut jouer. Les enfants
Kids
veulent
just
jouer.
want to play.
La
Consciousness
conscience
plays
joue
the
à se
game of
découvrir,
discovering
à
itself
se découvrir
through
elle-même à
itself,
travers elle-même.
through
à
this
travers son
world.
monde.
It's a
Donc, c'est un
game.
jeu. Dans jeu, jouer, il y a aussi joie, on pourrait dire.
So
Donc,
this
c'est
joy,
cette joie de de se redécouvrir, mais c'est pas une joie, comme je disais tout à l'heure, émotion, ça veut dire ex movere. La joie, c'est
But
pas une joie
it's not an emotion like ex movere. It's not putting yourself outside of yourself.
C'est une joie sans
It's
objet. seulement.
it's a joy without
En fait,
object.
rien.
So you don't do anything,
Le
and
mental
the
se
mental, your
Sentez
mind
la paix.
calms down.
C'est le process
So you
classique
find
en méditation.
a peace,
De
and
cette
from
paix, il y a
this peace
un sentiment de
comes
libération. Je suis libéré de
a
mes
sense of
pensées.
liberation
libéré de
from
mes
the
émotions.
thoughts, from
De
emotions,
cette
and
libération, il
from
y a de la
this
joie.
liberation
C'est
comes
spontané.
joy.
Et la conscience en Inde,
And
elle est Satchitananda.
Consciousness, like they say in
Elle est
India,
être,
is Satchitananda.
conscience
So
d'être. Parce que être, ça suffit pas.
it is,
Faut conscience
and it's
d'être.
conscious,
Vous savez que vous êtes.
conscious of
Il y a
being,
joie dans
and
cette
there's a
conscience
joy in this conscious.
C'est la-
Ananda
la-
is
voilà, Ananda.
bliss.
C'est cette joie, c'est cette
It's
joie
that
dont
joy.
dont je parle. Et là, on le sait.
And when you
Et on
know
le
it,
sait, mais alors,
you can't
on
doubt
ne peut
it.
pas en douter, quoi.
When you feel that
Quand on
joy
sent
that
cette
is
joie qui est
here,
là, on sait que c'est nous.
we
Enfin,
know
que
it's
que ça,
us.
que ça
It's
coule de la source. Que ça
we know
coule
it
de-
comes from
C'est ça.
the source,
Et c'est de là
and that's
que on agit.
that's
une
where
fois
we
une fois
act
l'éveil,
from,
en fait, c'est,
as long
qui se-
once the
une fois
shift
le basculement.
happens.
Comme je disais à Gérald hier, avant de faire des.
Like I said
avant de
to
faire des
Gerald yesterday,
conférences où,
before
par exemple,
doing
il y a beaucoup de textes
conferences,
qui viennent spontanément.
There's
Avant de faire des conférences, je sens que ça commence
I can feel
à
that something is
pousser.
pushing.
Là, quand je
Yeah,
parle,
I can
c'est
feel that
vraiment
it's
pas Pierre
really
qui
not
parle.
Pierre that is
C'est
talking
vraiment
right
ça
now. It's
pousse.
something is pushing.
Et
It's
c'est
this
cette joie,
joy,
cet,
this love,
cet
which is
amour, en
not
fait,
a
c'est
human
pas
love.
l'amour
It's
humain
this
qui est
unity,
cette
which is
unité
expressing
qui
itself
s'exprime
and talks,
et qui parle. Et
and
on
we
peut agir à
can
partir de là, quoi qu'on fasse.
act from this.
Ça, c'est Gérald, il me disait tout le temps, passe par le cœur.
And
Arrête de
Gerald
passer
kept
par la
on
tête.
telling me, stop
Arrête
using
de
your
méditer
mind,
avec ta
use your
tête et
heart,
médite
go
avec ton
through your
cœur. En
heart.
fait, c'est vraiment.
And
Ça,
this
c'est
is a real
vraiment une
key,
clé, quoi. Mais on comprend
and
vraiment
we really
ça.
get it.
Enfin, si on peut le comprendre, si quand même, c'est bien de le dire.
You can't get it intellectually, but it's good to
Mais c'est
to
pas
know.
humain. C'est
But
pas
it's
une
not
joie
human. It's not a
dans le
joy that
sens,
is
qui résulte,
resulting
genre, je
from
bois un
some sort of
chocolat chaud,
chocolate,
Il n'y a pas d'objet.
il y a pas-
hot chocolate, or there's
Il y a
no
pas d'objet.
object to it.
Il y a
En
pas
fait,
juste
dans
d'objet.
cette joie-là, il n'y a pas d'objet.
And the love,
Et l'amour, c'est pareil. L'amour dont
it's
on parle,
not
c'est
a
pas un amour
love
avec objet.
with an object.
C'est sans objet. Là, on
It's
est plutôt dans l'amour
unconditional
conditionnel. Il n'y a pas de condition.
love.
Il y a rien de tout
There's
ça.
no condition,
Il n'y a pas
no
d'enjeu, il n'y a pas de calcul. Il n'y a pas d'attente.
games, no,
Voilà, tu vois, il n'y a rien
there's
de tout ça, en
nothing.
fait.
It's just
C'est
spontaneous
spontané et c'est
and
entre
quote
guillemets
unquote
permanent.
permanent.
Donc il y a la source, cette conscience qui ne fluctue pas. Et de
So
la
there's this
source, il y a
source
tous
that is
les torrents, on pourrait appeler ça
never
comme ça, qui
fluctuating,
coulent.
and
Et ça se
there is the
manifeste
rest that is
comme
some
joie,
sort of torrent, current,
amour, service,
like creativity or
toutes
service,
sortes de
or
choses, parce que
because
c'est limitant
it might
aussi
be
de dire
limiting
la
to
joie.
talk only about
C'est vrai
joy.
que
It's
joie, hein,
not
des
always
fois, ça
joy.
peut être
Sometimes
aussi
it can be an incredible
une paix
peace
extraordinaire ou, enfin, tu vois,
or
on pourrait-
serenity.
Une grande sérénité.
It's
ça se renouvelle tout
renewing
le temps.
itself
On peut
all
pas
the time, so you
dire,
can't.
le goût de la
The taste of consciousness
change en permanence,
changes
et pourtant,
all the
il y a
time,
quelque part
and
toujours
yet
quelque
there's
chose
something
qui
that
est
is
toujours
always
pareil,
the same.
mais
It's
c'est une
a
saveur,
it's a flavor,
saveur
but
pour employer
it's
des mots,
only a
bien sûr.
word I'm using
mais
here.
qui
It's a flavor
peut pas
that
être
can't be
limité.
limited.
qui ne peut pas être limité par des qualificatifs.
It's hard to define consciousness. It's not possible.
C'est indifférencié, quoi. Il n'y a pas de définition.
There's no definition to it.
En plus, elle
It's
est
unborn.
innée, donc elle ne naît
It
pas.
doesn't get born. There's
Il n'y
no
a pas de
process
processus de
of being
naissance avec
born.
la conscience.
It's
Elle est
uncreated.
incréée,
It's
elle n'est
not
pas créée.
created.
Elle ne
It's not.
s'inscrit pas dans un processus de création.
There's no process of being created. So
Donc, c'est
how
pas
can you
évident à
explain that?
expliquer, tu vois.
It
Voilà, ça ne
can
peut
only
être
be
que vécu, qu'expérimenté,
accepted,
mais
experimented,
accepté.
but accepted. Kids
Les
don't
enfants
have
n'ont
any
pas de
trouble
souci
with that.
avec ça.
Yeah,
Les
that's
enfants
true.
n'ont pas de souci avec ça.
Exactement, ouais.
Les
Two
enfants,
kids,
pour eux,
it's
c'est
already
déjà là.
there.
C'est
They
ils
don't
acceptent
think
tout de
about
suite,
it.
et
It's
voilà.
they're
Ils savent
welcoming
que
it.
c'est là.
They don't think
Pose pas
about
de
it.
questions, quoi, tu vois.
We keep
On
saying
le dit
it
de toute façon dans les
in
textes,
all sacred texts, like
on
the
le
Christ.
dit à un moment donné, si vous ne vous
If you
retournez
don't
pas, c'est-à-dire se
return-
retourner intérieurement, et que vous ne
if
vous
you
faites
don't
pas
turn
petit
yourself
enfant, vous
and
ne
make
rentrerez pas dans le
yourself
royaume de mon Père.
a child, then you won't get into
une
the
telle
kingdom.
clarté.
It's so clear. It's so
Tellement évident
obvious that
qu'il
we
faut
need to
trouver
find
justement
this
ce- voilà, cette
dimension of,
dimension,
you know, that
d'enfance,
kidhood,
de pureté,
that purity of
exactement,
consciousness. Yeah.
conscience, quoi.
Alors après, des fois, l'ego, il va
Sometimes
saisir
ego
ça
will
pour,
try and grab that
pour
to
essayer
to
de mettre mettre une image de
to
l'éveil.
construct some sort of
Ça, c'est
image
drôle.
of
Par
being
exemple,
enlightened. So we'll tend to think that enlightened people act in a
des
certain
façons
way,
d'agir
like
qui
ways
vont pas
that
calquer
are
avec
different
l'idée qu'on a
to
d'un
what
éveillé
we
parce
think.
que je sais
Let's
pas,
say
imaginons que je ris
I'm
trop fort, ou
laughing
par
too
exemple, là, j'ai les
hard,
jambes croisées,
or I do
donc,
have my legs
donc là, non,
crossed
c'est pas
right
bon
here,
parce qu'énergétiquement,
and that's not good
faut avoir les
because
deux pieds au
your
sol,
feet
etc.
needs to be on the
Enfin,
ground,
tu
so
vois,
you're not
c'est un
enlightened,
truc,
and
tu vois. Et en fait, c'est...
but that's really not it,
Non, c'est pas
really,
ça. C'est juste pas ça, quoi.
really not.
C'est juste pas ça du tout. Euh, l'amour et la joie peuvent prendre des formes.
Love and joy
toutes les formes,
can
et même des formes qui
take
ressemblent à de la
so many
colère. Pour
forms,
faire la
even
boucle
forms
avec ce
where
que t'as
it
dit.
gets angry. Well, look at Nisargadatta Maharaj.
Il avait une façon
His way of
d'être
teaching was very funny.
drôle, mais bon, ça,
He would bang his fist on the table, like I usually say.
Ouais.
That would
Ça peut
happen
arriver.
sometimes.
Et en même temps, avec des fois où c'était tout autre chose. Quoi.
Ouais. mais avec
He
un
was
tel
so detached,
détachement,
so much detachment. I remember a teacher that would tell me, "I'm hitting you with love," and it's not. I'm not trying to. There was no tension really, but there's no hatred behind it. It's coming from love. Yep. Even Amma, I actually saw Amma yelling at someone, but the moment after it was gone. And when I say yelling, that was something really.
Ouais.
Yes.
Tu vois, là,
Even.
même Amma, là j'aime bien en parler de ça.
Did you hear
parce que
yourself?
le
You said
même,
even Amma,
signifie qu'on
and
met
this
des
is
fois
interesting, and
des
that's
étages,
some sort of
ça.
levels.
Et...
C'était un même.
Non, mais je comprends. Je l'ai pas par rapport à toi.
pas par rapport
It's just an example.
pas par rapport à toi.
I know you know,
Je
but
profite de
it's
ce
just
même.
this even Amma. Okay, that's my gift then.
Merci pour ce même. Bonjour, bienvenue. Oui, bien sûr. Et donc, on a tendance
We tend to
à
think
mettre
that
des
We need
catégories comme ça.
categories,
Et ce dont je me suis rendu compte, c'est que
but what I understood
après
after
cette
the shift,
réalisation, je voyais vraiment, et là ça m'a fait vraiment bizarre. C'est-à-dire,
I
je
would
voyais
see
une
a
photo de
photo of
Maharshi,
Amma
je
or
voyais une photo
Ramana
d'Amma. Il y avait
They
plus
used to have
le
some sort
mouvement
of
qu'il y avait avant. C'est-à-dire, avant, il y avait,
bowing movement.
Waouh,
It's
c'est
like,
Ramana,
wow.
c'est Amma
And
et tout.
it wasn't here anymore, or even
C'est
Jesus,
Jésus.
and it's
Maintenant,
not happening
ça
anymore.
fait plus ça. Faudrait. Ok, je peux.
Of course, I can mime it, but
Je peux mimer quoi. Mais ça.
it doesn't
ça-
resonate anymore.
Ça résonne plus.
There's
quoi.
nothing
Il n'y a rien qui change.
En fait,
changing.
tout
Everything
émane de la
comes
présence de ce que vous êtes,
from the
tout émane de la
presence that you
conscience.
are, from the consciousness.
et
Even
même
Amma,
Même Amma
Amma is
est
included into this
dans
presence.
cette
There's
présence. Il y a
no
aucune
difference.
différence.
And that's
Et ça, c'est
really
hyper
important to
important
understand that.
de comprendre,
Because the
parce qu'en fait,
ego
c'est l'ego
will
qui va encore faire vivre l'idée du moi spirituel
believe into this
avec l'idée d'un
spiritual me
gourou
with
qui
a
est
guru
supérieur,
that
et
is
donc il va
superior,
falloir que
bigger than me,
j'atteigne
and I
quelque
need
chose
to
pour être
attain
plus haut.
something, some sort of hierarchy.
Mais vous serez jamais
But
comme
you'll never be
un tel
like
ou un tel ou un tel ou un
this
tel.
one or this
Il y a-
one or this
il y a
one.
des milliards de
There's
milliards de flocons de neige
billions
depuis
of
que la Terre existe. Il y a jamais
snowflakes,
eu un
and
flocon de
there
neige pareil.
never once have two
Complètement
snowflakes that
unique
were
et
the
parfait
same.
dans votre
You're
unicité.
perfect in your unicity or your unity, in, well, your the manifestation that you are. Physically,
Physiquement, vous allez pas vous
you're
mettre
not going to
à
transform.
vous transformer.
C'est amusant, enfin, tout ce qu'on dit là, mais moi, ça me avec le monde
It's
que
funny
je
what we
reçois à la
say
maison,
because
je
everyone I
me
get
souviens un
to
jour d'une
see
personne qui était arrivée
in
pour me
my
parler
home,
hier, qui me
so
disait qu'elle
someone
voyageait
was
beaucoup en Inde, qu'elle avait rencontré plein de maîtres,
telling me,
tout ça,
and
de ça, de ça. Qui a été même, qui est monté très haut, même dans les
she met
Himalayas,
lots of
je sais plus,
sages,
des milliers,
masters.
de maîtres, voilà, et qui me disait, oui, de toute façon, les plus grands maîtres et les maîtres
Okay,
sont en
so
Inde.
she said something like, okay, all the real masters, the real,
Non, et puis
they are
de toute
in
façon,
India.
moi je sais les reconnaître.
and I know how to
Ok,
recognize
et tu
them.
les reconnais à quoi? Il y a des critères.
Okay, how do you do that?
Et ok.
Yeah, there's criterias. Okay,
Et à la fin, bon, j'ai fini par lui dire que
And
tout ça c'était vraiment
I
illusoire.
ended up telling her
parce qu'elle
that this
voyait encore
is
des
an
niveaux.
illusion.
Donc elle dissociait les choses.
She was
Donc, il y avait une
dissociating
différenciation, etc.,
things.
etc. Et après, c'est marrant parce qu'elle a,
So she
simplement-
actually
donc elle a pris conscience de ce qui se
became
passait.
aware that,
Et elle a pris conscience et puis elle m'a simplement dit
funny,
bah, c'est marrant, j'ai
I
pas vu
didn't
les
see
choses
that
comme ça.
this way. So
Donc, elle a vraiment
she
pris
really
conscience.
realized it.
Voilà,
It
on a eu une
was
discussion pourtant
very
très simple,
simple,
très
very
basique.
basic, but
Mais elle était
this
persuadée,
belief
elle avait
was
une
quite
croyance,
incredible.
c'était incroyable. Elle dit, non,
Real masters are in India, not
ailleurs.
somewhere else, not anywhere else.
Des instructeurs spirituels partout. Enfin, je veux dire.
And they have to
Tu dois
be
être comme
like
ça,
this,
comme ça.
like
En fait, elle
this.
m'avait donné des critères.
It was really
C'était
incredible,
incroyable.
very funny.
Voilà, c'était trop marrant. Je lui ai expliqué qu'en Inde,
So
on
I
trouvait
explained to her
un
that you
maître,
can find
peut-être un
masters
swami aussi, qui avait réalisé
who
ses souhaits, qui n'avait pas de bras
had,
ni de jambes.
you know, no legs, no arms. And with, I don't know how many disciples, very, very famous. And it was like, really?
Du coup, elle fait, ah bon?
I don't know this one.
Je le connais pas celui-là.
Yep.
Je dis, eh ben oui.
Consciousness
La
is
conscience, c'est
consciousness.
la conscience.
Doesn't change
Ça
anything.
change rien.
The body is just a
Le
form,
corps,
a
c'est
shape,
une forme, c'est un véhicule.
vehicle.
Et ils
And they
passent leur
keep
temps à nous
telling
dire
us
tout
that.
ça. C'est ça qui
That's
est,
the
c'est ça qui est fou, quoi.
Bah,
Tous, hein.
funny
Jésus
thing.
le dit tout
Jesus
le
is
temps, Amma le dit tout
Amma.
le temps,
And
tout, enfin,
all-
et bien
all
d'autres,
of them,
en fait,
really.
tous, hein.
Ramana.
Ah, ça. Donc, voilà, accepter ça.
So just accept it.
Dans le livre,
In the book
écrit,
that
je
we
lui avais
wrote,
dit à
the first
première
question
question à
I
Gérald,
asked him, how do you
comment
realize yourself?
réaliser
I don't know
le
how you
soi,
say that, but
j'avais posé la question, quoi.
he just said,
J'avais juste
you
répondu,
just
on
accept. You accept it.
On
And that's
accepte.
true.
Et c'est vrai, en plus, c'est vrai.
It's really that.
C'est
Et
vraiment
j'entendais
ça,
par
ouais.
là, on
And
accepte
you accept
d'être
to
le
be the
soi,
self
maintenant.
right now.
Ouais. Donc,
So
si pratique il devait y
if
avoir, ce serait vraiment de
practice
toujours
was
revenir ici et
needed,
maintenant et d'accepter
then
ici et maintenant qu'on
just
est déjà.
accept what you are right here, right now.
Parce que
as
tant
long
qu'on
as you
pensera
think
que
that
l'éveil, ce sera plus tard,
awakening
l'univers, il fait OK. Enfin, la conscience fait OK.
will
bah,
be
c'est plus
later
tard.
on,
Voilà,
will
c'est
come
ça.
later on,
Si tu
then
veux,
consciousness
il y a
is
pas de
going to
souci.
say, okay, sure, no
Tant
worries.
que
As long as you
penseras
think
Jésus, il est
Jesus
au-dessus, ah,
is
Jésus, il est au-dessus. Pas de problème.
Jesus is above me, well,
Pas de
sure,
souci.
no worries, I'll do
On va
that.
rester comme ça alors.
If you think like that,
Vous créez complètement votre
you
réalité.
do create your own reality.
Donc il n'y a pas de souci.